Pete Richter, the retired Baltimore City cop, coming back at you. I was one of the last of the footmen to be on the street, and that's what you need to stop crime, is a footman out there. And we're at Liberty Works Radio Network, and the number up here is 410-848-9191. 410-848-9191. And whatever I talk about, anybody disagrees with me, call me up and we'll talk about it. And if you agree, call up and talk about it. Well, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Indivisible means you can't be divided. That's what's happening over there in Egypt. Before I left the house tonight, I had the news on, and they were talking to some businessman who was mad at the protesters because it was hurting his business. Could you believe that? Yeah, I'll tell you why I believe it. George Washington's freezing to death in Valley Forge, while 1/3 of the population is for him, 1/3's for the king, and the other third's sitting on the fence. And the business people in New York City were making so much money off of the British soldiers, that's who they were championing. But anyway, I'm going to put a question out. I'm going to put a question out if anybody wants to answer it. And I'll start it this way. A fiery horse at the speed of light, cloud of dust and a hardy high o' silver. The Lone Ranger rides into Washington with his silver bullets and his faithful Indian companion Tonto, and states on worldwide news, I'm here to fight the injustices that's going on in this country, and the corruption that's going on in this country, and the people that aren't obeying the Constitution. The question is, could he raise a posse today? Could the Lone Ranger raise a posse today? It's doubtful. But if it was, there'd probably be more women in it than men these days. But anyway, that Constitution was written to protect you and I from the government. No other reason. I'd like to talk about that other side of the badge. You know, you got good guys and bad guys everywhere, and the same goes for the police and the government. The good guys need to start standing up against these bad guys. North Carolina, they got an outfit called SBI, State Bureau of Investigation. Doesn't work for the Justice Department. It works for the prosecutors. And they put innocent people in jail. And they're under investigation now. And the Attorney General for that state's got some FBI retired fellas looking into these allegations that have been proven of misconduct and corruption. Unbelievable what happens with this SBI in North Carolina. They'll come out with a report on evidence that the investigation was incomplete with this evidence, misleading evidence, laboratory reports that are falsified, and a lot of innocent people go to jail. And I'm going to give you a story about one of these innocent guys that went to jail. Taylor was his name. 17 years in jail. 17 years in jail for a crime he didn't commit because of this SBI in North Carolina, State Board of Investigation, Bureau of Investigation. Let me tell you off the top of my head how the story went with this fellow that spent 17 years in jail. He's home with his wife and kids watching some kind of TV show, and an intermission comes. He's got 15 minutes before, I guess, the game starts again. And he's a junkie. So he's going to go out and get high. He's got enough time to go out and get high and get back to the show. So he goes out and starts looking to cop some drugs when he runs into the local drug dealer, a black guy. Now, Taylor's a white guy, so right away you're a suspect of a crime if you're black and white together, even if you're both priests. So anyway, they decide he cops the drugs from the drug dealer, and then they both decide to get high. So they go to a lonely road that dead ends with a big circle, at the end of this dirt road in the middle of the woods. And they continue to get high for a couple hours. They don't go home. So anyway, Taylor's high, and black guy's high with him, the drug dealer. And they start doing donuts, spinning the vehicle around, and they get stuck in a ditch, and they can't get out. So they decide they got to walk. So as they're walking out of this big circle, I mean, it's a big circle, they see a rug rolled up, and an arm looks like it's hanging out of the rug. So they look at it, and they go over and investigate, and it's a dead body, some prostitute, dead, inside this rug. Well, tell me what you do, friends. You're a junkie, there's the dead body, you're with the local drug dealer, you going to call the police? I wouldn't. You're guilty. I guarantee you you're guilty in their minds. So they continue to walk out. Gets home. Later on, he's coming back with his wife to pick his vehicle up, and the police are there. And he has nothing to hide. He didn't do nothing. All he did was get high. He didn't kill anybody. Well, the police start interrogating him, and right away, he becomes the suspect. You're a junkie. You're with the local drug dealer. There's the prostitute. She's dead. She's wrapped up in a rug. You seen it and didn't call us. You must be guilty. Well, then this SBI gets involved. They first thing the police do before SBI gets involved is they bring in a dog. And like I've said before, the best drug sniffing dog in the world is wrong 60% of the time. Well, this particular dog was not trained for the mission they put the dog on. The police said that the dog alerted that the odor of the dead woman was inside Taylor's vehicle. Lie. And plus, the dog was not qualified for that kind of search to begin with. They also found, they said, now this is what the crime lab, SBI finds, that there's DNA evidence inside his truck that the woman was in his truck, his vehicle. That turned out to be a lie. Then they found a little spot on the outside of the vehicle, and this SBI said, that's blood. And they check it all out. Yes, it's blood. All that turned out to be a lie. Just to get a conviction. 17 years in jail for a crime you did not commit. Who are the bad guys? This is not what this country's about. We need better people in law enforcement. We need better people. And besides that, here's the SBI working for the prosecutor. Working for the prosecutor. Not the Justice Department, but for the prosecutor. You know, and how do you get promoted in those kind of outfits? You do what the boss tells you. What does the boss want? The boss wants production. He wants them cases solved. He don't want the public on his back. Who killed this prostitute? So, if you happen to be the unlucky guy like Taylor, shame on you. And that's not the only guy. They got 230 of them. They're going to have to turn their convictions around, and another 2,500 that they're looking at. It's just unbelievable what's going on. Well, another case they had was a retarded black fella. Had the mind of a 3-year-old, and he was well liked in this town in North Carolina, and he was a trusted member of the town. Everybody liked him, and he was so trusted that he'd hang around the courthouse, and the employees would give him their paychecks to deposit in the bank for them. You know, give him the deposit slip and endorse the check, give it to this retarded fellow, and he'd take it to the bank, and they'd come back and give him a tip. No problem with this guy. Everybody liked him. But imagine a fellow with a 3-year-old mentality. Well, this SBI gets a hold of him. There's a murder. Somebody said it was a black guy. This fella's walking near the area. They grab a hold of him. Okay, they grab him. Lock him up, take him in, and interrogate him. A guy with the mind of a 3-year-old. And they have him sign a confession that he committed the murder. He signs a confession and spells his name wrong. This guy can hardly talk and can't even spell his own name. Can't even remember where his address is. Well, the confession that he signed, the SBI said that they wrote it down word for word what he said. Word for word. Well, it was written like somebody went to college. Not by a guy that can't spell his own name. So obvious that this man did not give this confession. Plus, they did the same thing with the evidence they had on him. You know, if the evidence suits their purpose, they turn it in. If the evidence proves you're innocent, they throw it in the trash can. That court system don't hear about it. Well, this fellow spent 12 years in jail. 12 years in jail for a crime he didn't commit with a 3-year-old mentality. What kind of sleazeball, crudball, coward, piece of crap would do that to a retarded man? And the answer is the employees at the State Bureau of Investigation in North Carolina. And that's not the only one across this country. It's not the only one. You've had all kinds of crime labs throughout the nation. The people in charge aren't qualified. They falsify reports. They withhold evidence. And they can do things to make you look guilty. In other words, let's say they have a test and they think it's blood. And the test is inconclusive. They'll write on that inconclusive sheet of paper that this blood has not been positively identified at this point. Well, that's the only evidence they turn in. They don't turn in the evidence of the next two that says, no, it's not blood. So the jury gets to see that, the state's attorney gets to see that, but the defense doesn't get to see the other two tests that would help them. And this is the kind of crap that goes on all over this country, and it's wrong. Another thing this SBI did was they analyzed blood splashes. So, you know, if the blood hit the wall, it's going to roll down that wall a certain way. Certain blood's going to fall on the floor. It's going to splatter a certain way. You got to be kind of like an expert to determine if the stain what was put there legitimately, or is somebody trying to cover up a crime. Well, these SBI guys aren't even qualified to do that, and they'll take the test or do a test 20 times to get it to show what they want it to show. 19 times it helps the defendant that they don't show them. They show the ones that hurt the defendant. And that's not what this country's about. I don't know who said this, but it's better to let 100 innocent men free. I mean, guilty people free. It's better to set 100 guilty people free than to put one innocent man in jail. Well, that doesn't seem to be the case with this SBI. So anyway, the screws are turning now, and maybe they'll straighten this place out. But what kind of lowlife does it take to do that? Put a retarded fella in jail so your boss likes you better. It's just unbelievable, and just goes on and on and on and on. But I tell you, that Egypt over there, I'm proud of them Egyptian people. I'm proud of them standing up against this dictator. But the sad part is the guy that's got the job, the guy that works for the dictator, he don't want it to change because it's good for him. Well, the United States isn't supposed to be that way. We're supposed to be one for all and all for one. And that's what indivisible means. You can't be divided. But anyway, after this break, give me a call. 410-848-9191. Liberty Works Radio Network. Pete Richter coming back to you again up here at Liberty Works Radio Network. Give me a call. 410-848-9191. That's 410-848-9191. So let's get off of this here SBI a little bit and talk about some of the crazy stuff the cops are doing. Now, before I get started, most cops are good guys. They're not bad guys. A lot of them are good guys, but they're the wrong guy for the job. That's another problem we got, too. Not everybody can be a brain surgeon. Not everybody can be a bricklayer. And not everybody can be a police officer. You got to hire the right guy for the job in the first place. You don't want the guy that got smacked in the mouth and gave up his lunch money as a kid in the schoolyard. You don't want that guy that couldn't get a girlfriend, couldn't make the baseball team, and never been in a fist fight. You don't want them kind of guys on the job, but they got too many of them Barney Fifes there. And here's one that was just hit the news, happened a year ago, but it just hit the news. Houston, Texas, they're chasing a 15-year-old burglary suspect. Let's say the street's north and south. The kid's running south on the street, trying to get away from the cops that are chasing him. And there's a curb on the west side of the street, and a grass plot about 10 foot wide, and a 8 foot tall chain link fence. Well, going northbound is a police car. The kid runs over the curb, up on the grass. So does the police car that's going north, and he crashes into this 15-year-old kid who flies over the hood of the car and lands on his stomach, spread eagle, sees the cops got him, does not resist, puts his hands behind his head, surrendering. 12, 13 police kick this kid in the face, in the groin, in the sides, jump up and down on his legs, punch him in the head, in the sides, kicking him everywhere. Unbelievable. And it was caught by a surveillance camera. And the first thing that the state's attorney does and the police do is say, well, we can't let this video out. It'll taint the trial, but they sure don't mind putting the video out on us now, do they? But what goes to my mind is, with all these cell phone cameras, all these surveillance cameras all over the place, why do these police behave in this poor manner? Why? In my day, you'd be scared to death to go wrap somebody in the mouth for nothing to begin with, but then knowing that there's video cameras around, you think everybody would be on their P's and Q's. Not these police today. They're above the law. It's just unbelievable. Well, this happened a year ago. It finally got to where they got 4 of these cops suspended and the rest of them under investigation, but they should go to jail. Kid laying on the ground, 15 years old, surrendered. Just kick him and kick him and kick him. Big tough guys. Big tough guys. It's just unbelievable. In my day, back in '65, you went out on them streets on foot. By yourself. You want to be a tough guy? You better be able to back it up. You better be able to back it up. And statistics will prove when you got, it's less chance of one police working by himself getting hurt than when there's 2 of them working. Because that other man gives Barney Fife the courage, and they wind up pushing the button to somebody they shouldn't push the button on, and that's when the problems start. But they had another one on these. I got people sending me all kinds of YouTube stuff now, and they had another one in Philadelphia. A police gets killed by a bad guy on day 1. So the police are all upset. On day 2, unrelated to this policeman being shot, unrelated, totally unrelated, there's a drive-by where 4 guys commit a drive-by, and one of them flees on foot, and the other one, the other 3 leave in a car. So lo and behold, this car is spotted. I don't know if it was the same day or the next day, but it has nothing to do with this policeman being killed. Well, they stop his car with these 3 guys in it who offer no resistance whatsoever. They are beaten to a pulp, all 3 of them. And one cop's running from one guy to kick him in the head, runs to the other guy, kick him in the head, runs to the third one, kicks him in the head. Just total brutality, and the police department comes up with, well, they're upset. Was that an excuse for you, ladies and gentlemen? I was speeding because I was upset? I punched my mother in the mouth because I was upset? I smacked the store clerk in the mouth because I'm upset? Of course not. But that's what they come up with. And another thing that really gripes me is law enforcement. They don't want you to have any rights. But when they get caught, they want all the rights in the world, and they should get all the rights in the world, but so should we. So should we. Here's a good one out of Fulton County, Georgia. Deputy sheriff has been convicted on manslaughter and other charges for trying to shoot a prostitute who fled when he attempted to rape her, and then shooting and killing her pimp. You can't make this stuff up. He's trying to rape a prostitute. She won't go for it. So he shoots at her. Somehow the pimp gets involved, and he shoots and kills the pimp. Unbelievable what happens. It's unbelievable. Here's one from Santa Fe, California. Police have been sued by the family of a man shot by a police officer who claimed that it was self-defense because the man was armed with a knife. However, the suit comes after an autopsy showed the man died from a gunshot wound to the head from behind. He's shot in the back of the head by the police who says he's coming at him with a knife. Lawyers for the family also claim a reluctant witness said the man had his hands up when he was shot. Hands up in the air, shot in the back of the head. Self-defense because the guy's coming at the police with a knife. Well, maybe this guy's like the Exorcist where his head spins around, so he spun his head around backwards and then run backwards at the cop. Unbelievable. I don't see how anybody in their right mind can believe this stuff. Up in Toronto, police officer charged with a second-degree assault with a weapon charge, both of which stem from an alleged beating that occurred during the G20 protest last year. That G20 protest was over the banking up there, and thousands of people showed up, and the police in Canada are just as bad as the police anywhere. And the police they should be your friends. They should look out for the underdog. They should champion the Constitution. They shouldn't be out here bullying people, pushing people around, beating people that's already surrendered. This is wrong. And it's done constantly. And it's a shame that it's done that way. Let me look at this sheet of paper and see what else we got. Here's one in Florida. Deputy has been charged with felony assault for slamming a handcuffed detainee to the floor, then dragging him to the booking area as captured on a jail surveillance camera. So they videoed themselves beating people up. Video themselves. I had seen a video one time on a YouTube where it was the news, where the kid's on a motorcycle, and the cops are behind him, and he don't know the cops are behind him, so that tells me they're in a plainclothes car. Well, it was two of these young guys on motorcycles wind up at a stop sign with the cops behind them, and they take off fast. One takes off real fast and, out of sight. Well, the second one pulls up to a circle turn when the police put on the blue lights and everything, and he stops. The one that was going real fast, he went over the curb at the circle, wound up falling down. But the one that stops stands up with his hands on the handle, on the bars, right? Puts it in neutral, and with one hand holding the bike up and straddling the bike, he turns around to look. The cops are screaming and yelling by this time. They shoot him in the back and paralyze him. And then what they said was, we thought he had a gun. Well, I thought they were Santa Claus when I was a little kid. What you think and what's really going on is going to be two different things. Here's one, another one in Florida. Florida must be a bad place. Sergeant is the subject of a lawsuit alleging he beat and choked a handcuffed and shackled suspect during an interrogation when the man refused to divulge any information to detectives. Guess what? You got the fifth. You don't have to talk. You don't have to testify against yourself. Well, it seems like down here in Fort Myers, Florida, the police will beat you up if you exercise your constitutional rights. Which reminds me of a true story. There's a street called Victory Lane up in Baltimore County, just right above the city line. And it's a dead end, and there's a graveyard there. Well, the lovers and the beer drinkers would go down to the end of this road and you know, kiss and make love and drink beer. Where it was a real old lady, about 82 years old, lived in the last house, and they're constantly leaving their beer bottles on her lawn and using her driveway to turn around in. So she comes out with now she's 82 years old. She comes out with a baseball bat in one of these cars on her in her driveway, and she wants him out of there. And she's scaring him with this baseball bat. She's 82 years old. Well, anyway, the cops come. Baltimore County. Handcuff and shackle this woman. Take her to the court commissioners and charge her with resisting arrest and assault on a police officer because she didn't hit nobody. Can you imagine in the day going into the desk sergeant who probably, you know, was at the Normandy invasion, been through the Depression and everything else, and tell this sergeant, Sarge, I locked this 82-year-old woman up. She had a baseball bat. She weighs 98 pounds, soaking wringing wet, and she's a threat. They'd get out of here, take her home, and thank God that she's still living at 82. Not these guys today. It's a total different ball game. And another thing I could read these things all day long with these police. It's just unbelievable. And it's not just, you know, in Florida. It's everywhere you go. You see it constantly on the news. Constantly. And another thing we're going to talk about today is GPS tracking devices. Can you believe that there's some states, I think it's 9 of them, that allow the police to put GPS tracking devices on your car while you're parked in your own driveway? You're not suspect of any crime. You haven't done anything wrong. And we'll talk about that a little bit. Break's coming up soon. And then I'm going to talk about the watermen down Eastern Shore. They're under scrutiny right now. The DNR police have confiscated 10 tons of rockfish. And rockfish are known as striped bass, but in Maryland we call them a rockfish. And they get pretty big. They'll go up to 50, 60 pounds. They'll go up off the coast, but they spawn in Maryland up in the Chesapeake Bay. And I guess they got some up in the Delaware Bay too, but Chesapeake Bay is the main spawning ground for these rockfish. And these poachers go out there and set these nets out. And one of these nets had 3 tons of rockfish in it, but during 1 week they got 10 tons of rockfish. So anyway, we'll talk about that when we come back. But Liberty Works Radio Network, phone number 410-848-9191. And I want to hear anybody that's out there in law enforcement tell me what I'm saying is not true. Pete Richter. Pete, coming back to you here. And we had a good little break here. Don't forget you want to call Liberty Works Radio Network, 410-848-9191. Liberty Works Radio Network, 848-9191. Give us a call, and the phone will be answered by Miss Jane Doe. That's the engineer up here. She don't give her name to nobody. IRS, the police, nobody gets her name unless they legally have the right to get it. Well, anyway, these GPS devices, 9 states, the courts are ruling that they're okay to have. We had an Oregon man they thought was involved with marijuana. They went up into his driveway and installed a GPS device, and the courts upheld it, saying that if it's in your driveway, you have no expectation of privacy because the mailman can walk up there, the kids in the neighborhood, delivery people, and along with that is the police, the FBI, and anybody else that wants to put a GPS on you. And marijuana, that's like a real big, dangerous crime. It's so lucrative that 6,000 metric tons of dope come across the Mexican border every year, and nobody can catch them. I believe that too. Anyway, the FBI winds up putting one of these GPS devices on an American citizen who happens to be half Egyptian. His father married an American woman. He's born here, but the family moves back to Egypt, and then he moved back to the United States to get an education. And so they decided he was the bad guy. He's never done anything wrong. He's not suspect of any crime other than he's got this Egyptian background. So they put a GPS device on his car. Takes his car in for an oil change. Lo and behold, there's the GPS. He finds it, and he takes it off the car. He don't really know what it is. His buddy takes a picture of it. They put it on the internet. Next thing you know, here's the FBI back. They want their GPS back. Can you believe this? They bolt it to your car. In Maryland, it's against the law to tamper with a vehicle. Tampering is against the law. Let's say your car's parked and you got a television in the back seat. And here comes the punk wants to steal it, and he starts pulling all your doorknobs and everything. Well, he don't have to get in that car to charge him. That's called tampering. So here's the FBI tampers with your vehicle, and the judge says that's okay. Now, rich people, you can't do this to rich people because their cars are parked in garages. They live in gated communities. The police just can't walk in, but the poor guy, they're going to get him. It's just unbelievable what goes on. Well, anyway, in Maryland, they're putting these GPS tracking devices on the waterman's boat. A waterman is a guy that catches crabs, clams, oysters for a living. It's a dying breed. There's not too many of them left anymore. And they had a big case here where they're confiscating all these nets that are laid out illegally by the bad guys. And like I said, one haul, 3 tons of rockfish. The DNR police, their boat wasn't big enough to haul it all, so they had to call in this big boat to pull in these fish. They wound up getting 10 tons of fish in a week. And that hurts the honest watermen because you're only allowed to catch so many of these rockfish. You call them striped bass, we call them rock. You're only allowed to catch so many of these rock, but when the DNR police pull the fish in, they wind up selling them on the market rather than the fish go bad. And that means that's added into the quota. So if you got 10 tons caught illegally, that's 10 tons the honest waterman can't catch. So they put tracking devices on the boats of the watermen to find out what they're doing. And these guys are hard-working characters, man. They're hard as nails. They're the salt of the earth, these waterman-type guys. And tell me how to get rid of 10 tons of rockfish. Tell me. DNR had to bring in his gigantic boat to haul the fish out of the water with pulling the nets in. A waterman don't have them big boats. They don't have gigantic boats like that. And how can you conduct this operation? Where would you get rid of 10 tons of rockfish? You got to refrigerate them. That means and you got to distribute them. So who's buying these rockfish off these watermen? They're not sitting on the side of the road with a pickup truck with a sign "rockfish for sale." This is a big operation. You got to have somebody that can store these rockfish. It's got to have some place that's refrigerated. They got to transport them in refrigerated tractor trailers. You're talking about a lot of fish here. These fish average 10 pounds apiece. So 10 pounds a piece, that's a lot of fish. That's a lot of fish. And, you know, that's a good size. I guess that's 18, 19-inch fish. And a rockfish is good eating, ladies and gentlemen. If you ever been to Maryland, get a stuffed rockfish. And what they do is they bake a rockfish with a crab cake in it. And it's called a stuffed rockfish. Man, are they great. And Maryland's one of the best places for seafood. But let me talk about these watermen a little bit here. These guys aren't out here breaking the law. Some of them are, sure, lock them up. But to give these watermen a bad name, when some big outfit's behind all this, them watermen can't get rid of 10 tons of fish. You got to have the suppliers that supply to these restaurants all up and down the East Coast. They're involved. These watermen can't get rid of that. But that's who they're going to go after, is the watermen. That's always the case. And I know some watermen. The first waterman I met was Charles Anthony up in Queenstown. His father was a waterman. They called his father Chalk. And when I was a kid, Chalk Anthony was probably 90 years old. Charles was up in his 40s. I started going down Eastern Shore in the 50s, probably 55, 56, somewhere in there. And had an uncle from Baltimore that married a woman from Eastern Shore. And Charles Anthony was a relative. And as a kid, I'd go down that Eastern Shore with my uncle, and his name was Weenie. That's another story. Weenie looked like Clark Gable, had one arm. When he was 16, he fell into a machine at a printing press where he was working at 16. It chewed his arm off. So the company, gave him $500, a wooden arm, and fired him. But later on, my father got him a job at Russell's Iron and Steel, where he worked about 35, 40 years and retired. But anyway, I'd go down Eastern Shore with my Uncle Weenie, and we stayed with Charles Anthony up in Queenstown. And one of his work boats was the Betty R. And I can remember as a kid going out on that river with Charles, and you could see a crab on the bottom of 20 foot of water. Today, you walk in the water, you can't even see your feet. And these watermen, like I said, they was hard as nails, but they was as friendly as could be. And they drink beer, work hard, and play hard. But they were all nice guys. Charles was a World War II veteran. Fought for his country. And most of them watermen are the same way. And I know a bunch of them today. And Charles, like I say, everybody called him Charles, but some of these guys got nicknames. Bluey, Snapper, Crapper, and they got all these crazy names. Magoo. Magoo's blind now. That's where he got the name Magoo. And Magoo has a brother named Coon Dog. Coon Dog Smith lives down in Dominion. And the water business is so bad, he's planting trees. But Coon Dog's a Christian. And I'm up in Baltimore playing at a community center, and one of the master ceremonies is a guy named Bill Ritchie. And Bill Ritchie was a World War II veteran, and he's originally from St. Mary's County, which is on the western shore, down around the Potomac Riverway, down that way, and Patuxent River. So they have watermen down there too, but the Eastern Shore guys don't consider them ones on the western shore watermen, and vice versa. So I'm up at the community center doing some charity singing, and Bill Ritchie says to me, "Hey, Pete, you down Eastern Shore now, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah, I moved down there." He said, "Playing any music?" I said, "Yeah, I'm singing gospel music with a gang of Christian watermen." He says, "Christian watermen? That's a contradiction." Well, anyway, I wound up singing a song by Coon Dog Smith, the Christian waterman. I'm going to get my guitar here and I'll sing it for you. And Coon Dog is a Christian, and he, like I say, he's a waterman, but you can't make any money anymore. He's planting trees with his son. But I got this idea for this song about the Christian waterman from that one word that Bill Ritchie said, contradiction. Well, anyway, tongue and oysters. tongs are these long poles with a metal clamp on the bottom, like I guess you'd call it, and they tong oysters with that, and I'll mention that in this song. And salted eels are in the brine, I'll say. When they're out there crabbing, they use salted eels as bait, and they got a big barrel of real salty brine water to keep that bait from going bad. But anyway, this one's called Singing Gospel on the Bay about my buddy Coon Dog Smith. Let me take my ear thing off so I can hear myself. There we go. There's a waterman contradiction when you're down Dominion Way. It's Coon Dog the Christian waterman singing gospel on the bay. He's working traps, running a line, or calling clams all day. He's a working Christian waterman singing gospel on the bay. Singing gospel on the bay, singing gospel on the bay. He's a working Christian waterman singing gospel on the bay. We'll tongue and horses from a dead rise boat in the cold and the wind all day. Watching his breath in front of his face, a hard life so they say. Working in tongs, walking the boards in the cold and the freezing rain. He's a working Christian waterman singing gospel on the bay. Singing gospel on the bay, singing gospel on the bay. He's a working Christian waterman singing gospel on the bay. Salted eels are in the brine, catching hard crabs all the day. With white rubber boots, his Bible in hand, pulling on a seine. From early light to the end of day, what would Peter say? Join the Christian waterman and sing gospel on the bay. He's heading back to Little Creek, his work is almost done. Caught 6 bushels of #1s, working in the sun. He's back to the dock to clean his gear, then he'll hit the hay. He's a working Christian waterman singing gospel on the bay. Singing gospel on the bay, singing gospel on the bay. He's a working Christian waterman singing gospel on the bay. When the roll is called up yonder, he'll be there. There it is, ladies and gentlemen, singing gospel on the bay by Coon Dog Smith, the Christian waterman. And like I say, and watermen guys, they're almost a thing of the past. And I don't know if this is an omen or not, but I had an American flag sitting behind me, just fell off the wall when I started singing about the watermen, the dying breed. I sure hope that ain't an omen that the United States is a dying breed, but maybe that was just an accident that it fell off. But anyway, this has been a good evening here with you fellas out there and girls and boys, and you call next week. And we're up here at the Liberty Works Radio Network, and I'm the old retired footman from Baltimore, and I want to tell you the other side of that badge. The good police need to stand up, be counted, and put in these bad cops. And the cops are your second line of defense for your constitutional rights. You're your first line of defense. God bless America, and if that's politically incorrect, too bad. Pete Richter signing off.